Once upon a time, in a small village nestled at the foot of a grand mountain, there lived a proud and arrogant potter named Odogwu. He was known far and wide for his skill in carving the finest statues, making lifelike figures from stone, wood, and clay. Odogwu was not simply a man of talent, he was a man of pride. He believed that his work was beyond the reach of any other artist, and he saw himself as superior to those around him. His reputation fed his ego, and his ego shaped every part of his being. He felt untouchable, unchallenged. But there was one part of his life where his control was not so secure: his marriages. Odogwu had been married 3 times, and each marriage had ended in failure. His first wife, Ugodiya, had been the village's most beautiful woman. She had golden skin and eyes that sparkled like the stars. But her beauty was not enough to keep Odogwu's admiration for long. He began to see her as something to be molded, to be shaped into the perfect companion. He wanted her to behave a certain way, to worship him as a god, and always please him. But she was her own person, with thoughts and emotions of her own. She was not content with being a mere accessory to his pride. One day, Ugodiya had finally had enough. She packed her belongings, leaving a letter behind that read, "I am not your statue, Odogwu. I am a woman, with my own soul. You cannot control me, and I will not be part of your illusion." And just like that, she was gone. Odogwu was furious but could not understand why she had left him. How could she leave me, he asked. I had given her everything. But it wasn't the gifts he had given her, it was his desire to control her that drove her away. Odogwu refused to accept that, instead blaming her for not being the wife he had envisioned. His second marriage was to a woman named Chika from a neighboring village, who possessed a sharp wit and a strong sense of independence. She was intelligent, outspoken, and hardworking. In the beginning, Odogwu admired her strength, thinking her strength and independence made her a worthy companion. But over time, his arrogance grew, and he began to see her not as a partner, but as someone who needed to be controlled. "I'm the man of the house," he would say, puffing out his chest. "You speak when I ask you to, and nothing more." Chika would nod, understanding her role, but deep down, she yearned for her voice to be heard, to share her thoughts and opinions. She obeyed him, as he demanded, but with each passing day, the weight of her silence grew heavier, like a chain wrapped around her spirit. As time wore on, Odogwu insisted on complete control, never allowing her the space to express herself. "You are here to support me, not to challenge me," he would say, dismissing her subtle attempts to engage. Chika, ever the patient woman, tried to please him, suppressing the words and ideas that begged to be spoken. But as the days dragged on, her silence became suffocating, like the air growing thicker and harder to breathe. Eventually, she realized that in the marriage, she had lost herself, her thoughts, her voice, her very essence. Chika began to wither like a flower denied the sunlight it needed to bloom. One day, feeling a sense of desperation she could no longer ignore, she confronted Odogwu. His anger fled instantly. In a fit of rage, he cast her aside, telling her she was not worthy of him. "You don't understand me," he spat, as though her very presence was a burden. And just like that, she left, just as Ugodiya had. And once again, Odogwu blamed her. She wasn't good enough, he muttered to himself, his pride unbroken. She didn't understand me. The third wife, Amara, was a gentle soul. She was kind, patient, and devoted to Odogwu in every way. She never raised her voice, never challenged him. She was content to live in the shadow of his greatness, quietly fulfilling the role he had created for her. But even her unwavering devotion could not withstand Odogwu's arrogance. He began to see her as nothing more than a servant, someone to cater to his every need, to fulfill his desires without question. Odogwu, still not satisfied, began to complain about everything. "You eat too much, Amara. You laugh a little too loud, please tone it down. And you're gaining too much weight, watch it." The complaints were endless, each one another weight added to her shoulders. Over time, Amara's spirit began to fade. The endless criticism wore her down. She grew tired of being a mere object of complaint. She became quiet, withdrawing into herself, her once vibrant personality dimming under the weight of his constant demands and complaints. One day, she left him, heartbroken and broken in spirit. Still, Odogwu did not understand why. "Why would she leave me?" he asked in disbelief. She served me as I wanted. Odogwu's arrogance grew stronger with each failed marriage. He convinced himself that the problem was not his attitude, but the woman he had chosen. They had not been perfect enough. They had not bowed to him in the way he thought they should. He told himself that the next time, he would find someone who would be perfect, a woman who would love him unconditionally and worship him as a god. After his third wife, Amara, left, Odogwu sat in his workshop, staring at a lump of clay. It was a beautiful block, soft and pliable, ready to be shaped. And in that moment, Odogwu had an idea. Why bother with real women, he thought. I can create the perfect wife, one who will never fail me. She will be my ideal woman, and I will control everything about her. She will never speak unless I command it. She will do everything I tell her. Odogwu's pride swelled as he began to mold the clay, working late into the night. His hands moved with speed and precision, his mind consumed by the thought of creating the perfect woman. His vision of this perfect bride grew clearer with each stroke of his chisel. Her face would be delicate, her body flawless, her every feature a reflection of the perfection he sought. She would be a statue come to life, a woman who would worship him and never question him. As the days passed, Odogwu worked tirelessly, his obsession with his creation deepening. He carved her eyes, wide and unblinking, reflecting the silence he expected from her. Her lips, shaped into a permanent smile, would never speak, never challenge him. Her hair flowed in perfect waves, her body slender and graceful, exactly the way he imagined the perfect woman should be. When he finally completed his masterpiece, Odogwu stepped back and admired his work. She was everything he had ever dreamed of, flawless, obedient, and perfect. He named her Ugodiya, which means the pride of her husband. In the days that followed, Odogwu treated Ugodiya as though she were a living woman. He spoke to her, gave her commands, but she remained silent, still and unblinking. He commanded her to sit, to stand, to pose, and she followed every order, as if she were alive. To Odogwu, this was the ultimate proof of her perfection. She did not speak, she did not question him. She simply obeyed. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to change within Odogwu. His pride, which had once been a source of strength, began to bother him. The silence from Ugodiya that had once seemed like perfection now felt like emptiness. He began to feel the weight of her lifelessness pressing down on him. She was perfect, but there was no warmth, no joy in her presence. She was a statue, and no matter how perfect, a statue could never provide the love or companionship he so desperately craved. Odogwu tried to convince himself that this was what he wanted. I created her to be perfect, he would say. She will never disappoint me, never betray me. But the more time he spent with Ugodiya, the more he realized that her silence was not a blessing, it was a curse. One evening, as he sat before her, Odogwu spoke softly, almost as if to himself. What good is a perfect woman if she cannot love? What good is a flawless figure if it cannot speak? What good is beauty if it leaves you cold and empty inside? As days turned into weeks and then months, Odogwu's frustration grew. He had created the perfect woman, but he had lost something far more important, the ability to connect with another human being. He realized that he had been so focused on creating perfection that he had forgotten what it meant to truly love someone. He spoke to Ugodiya again, his voice tinged with regret. I thought you would be the answer to my loneliness, he said. I thought you would feel the emptiness inside me, but instead, you remind me of the very thing I tried to escape, the truth that I am alone. Ugodiya remained silent, her eyes unblinking, her smile unchanging. She was beautiful, but she was empty. Odogwu could see it now. He had crafted a perfect image, but he had forgotten the most important thing of all: true love is not about perfection. It is about connection, communication, and understanding. The villagers, who had once admired Odogwu's work, now spoke of him with pity. They whispered behind his back about the potter who had created a wife of clay and lost his heart in the process. Odogwu withdrew from the world, hiding himself away in his workshop. His fame faded, and soon, no one came to see his work. No one came to admire the perfection of his creations because they now saw them for what they were: empty, lifeless objects. In the quiet of his workshop, Odogwu came to a painful realization. He had spent his life crafting perfection, but in doing so, he had lost the ability to experience real love, real connection. He had isolated himself, built walls around his heart, and pushed away the very people who could have given him what he needed most. One evening, as Odogwu sat before Ugodiya, his heart heavy with regret, he spoke softly, almost as if begging for forgiveness. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I was too proud. I thought I could control everything, but I see now that love cannot be sculpted from clay. It cannot be controlled. It must be earned, nurtured, and given freely." But Ugodiya remained silent. Her eyes did not blink. Her smile did not waver. She was a statue, a perfect reflection of Odogwu's arrogance and his folly. Odogwu spent the rest of his days alone, reflecting on his mistakes. His reputation as a potter faded, and he never again created a perfect statue. He learned that true love is not about perfection, but about accepting flaws and imperfections. It is about finding someone who will love you for who you are, not what you have created. The villagers spoke of Odogwu and his perfect bride, Ugodiya, as a cautionary tale. They remembered him not for his skill with the chisel, but for his failure to understand the most important lesson of all, that true beauty lies not in perfection, but in the imperfections that make us human. Odogwu's lesson was one that would be passed down for generations, reminding all who heard it that love cannot be shaped, molded, or controlled. It must be given freely, and in return, it will fill the heart in ways perfection never could. And so, Odogwu lived the rest of his days in solitude, a broken man, forever haunted by the perfect creation he had made and the perfect love he could never have. The story of Odogwu and Ugodiya serves as a powerful reminder that in marriage, perfection is not the key to lasting happiness. True love cannot be sculpted or controlled. It is born from mutual respect, understanding, and the acceptance of imperfections. No one is perfect, and neither is any marriage. It is the willingness to grow together, to support each other through challenges, and to love without trying to shape or manipulate the other person into an ideal image that makes a relationship meaningful. A marriage built on control and the expectation of perfection will inevitably lead to disappointment. Just as Odogwu learned too late, real love thrives in the space between imperfection, where two individuals can embrace each other's flaws, grow through their struggles, and create a bond that is strong and genuine. In marriage, we must remember that it is the connection, the shared journey, and the acceptance of each other's humanity that makes it worth cherishing. Like clay, we may mold ourselves and our relationships through effort and care, but true beauty and strength come from what is nurtured, not forced. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.